Welcome, everyone. We're going to give it about 2 more minutes before we get started. Good morning. Thanks for coming in. We'll give it about 1 more minute until we get started. All right, good afternoon. My name is Katie Schaefer. I am the board certified behavior analyst at Julie Billiart Schools Lyndhurst. And today we are going to talk about understanding and addressing K-8 behavioral issues tied to anxiety. This is the second webinar in our anxiety series presented by Julie Billiart Schools. A recording of this will be emailed to you along with some resources after the webinar. So like I said, my name is Katie Schaefer. I am the behavior analyst at Julie Billiart School Lyndhurst. I have been a part of the Julie Billiart School community since 2014. I started as a kindergarten intervention specialist for several years. In 2018, I became a BCBA. And so now I am full-time as the behavior analyst at our Lyndhurst location. Today, we're going to talk about anxiety and how it relates to behavior. And I hope today you will come away with a better understanding of how anxiety affects childhood behavior, some tips for managing anxious behaviors, and some healthy ways for children to manage and cope with their anxiety. If you have any questions, you can use the Q&A box at the bottom of your webinar screen, and hopefully we will have time at the end to answer your questions. And if we do not, we will make sure that we email you back and get you the answers to any of your questions. So some of you tuned in last week with Mrs. Johnston, and so some of this may be a little bit of a review, but I want to just spend a few moments on this before we dive into the behavior aspect. So what is anxiety? Anxiety can be a normal reaction to stress. However, the American Psychological Association defines anxiety disorders when fear or anxiety are out of proportion to the situation or are not age appropriate, and then therefore hinders one's ability to function typically. Individuals with autism spectrum disorder are more likely to have depression and anxiety disorders. So what can anxiety look like? It can take form in many ways. So there can be a fight, flight, or freeze response. It can draw people inwards and they can withdraw, or some individuals may lash out aggressively or demonstrate some meltdown or tantrum-like behavior. Anxiety can be specific or it can be unidentifiable. So a specific type of anxiety may be like test anxiety, that someone is nervous for a big test coming up, whereas unidentifiable anxiety may be more like that butterfly feeling or skin is crawling. You may feel easily agitated or triggered, restless, or have difficulty paying attention. And that can be similar to ADHD, but it is important to decipher or differentiate between the two because treatment will be different versus for anxiety versus ADHD. Another type of anxiety, or what it could look like, would be asking repetitive questions, so seeking reassurance. So a student may know the answer, but they may just need to hear it from a trusted adult that, yes, recess is coming after lunch, or yes, you will get to take this home. So a student may ask several questions over and over just to make sure that they are comfortable with the schedule or whatever's coming up next. So more things of what anxiety can look like. Frequent ailments or requests to visit the nurse. So some may have like a high alert for danger, or there may be some physiological changes to their body that make them not feel well, whether it's stomach aches or just the jitters that a visit to the nurse may help make them feel better. Refusal to participate. So students may try to avoid uncomfortable things. This could be social situations, general social interactions, group work, and they may be determined or constant in that mindset. They may not respond to logic and are unwilling to reconsider their decision to participate. So they're pretty steadfast in their refusal to participate. They also may not turn in their work, and this could be fear of mistakes or perfectionism. They want to make sure that when their work is turned in, it's A+ work with their best handwriting, and they're scared that maybe they will not get a good grade or it's not done appropriately. So they may be worried about turning in their work. So how does anxiety relate to behavior? And that's why I think we're all here today, is really to dive into that behavior piece. So anxiety can act as a setting event. So what is a setting event? A setting event is not a specific trigger, but can influence the probability of a behavior to occur. So anxiety isn't the reason a student or an individual is acting a certain way, but it's happening in the background. So it's something that can influence the probability. So it's more likely that a student may engage in a certain behavior because of their anxiety. Anxiety can build up over time. So little things contribute to their anxiety, and gradually it leads up to a bigger behavior. So one example is like a glass of water. So if we have an empty glass of water and we slowly are pouring a little bit of water in at a time, and it slowly a little bit more and a little bit more, and then eventually the water is going to overflow. The cup is going to be too full, and then there's going to be a reaction. So that's just like anxiety. We can usually, and students can usually handle little bits of anxiety throughout their days, but at a certain point, they just can't handle anymore. And so there might be a bigger reaction, whether that's like the tantrum-like behavior or they shut down and are withdrawn in a certain setting. So here are some tips and strategies that we will get into. So it's important to be able to identify anxiety and recognize our own feelings. So this is the incredible 5-point scale by Carrie Dunn-Buren. And there are ratings from 1 to 5, where 1 is calm and in control, and then level 5 is feelings of extreme anxiety or peak anxiety. So this is a quick and easy way to identify levels of anxiety within a child or a student. So we'll kind of go through this and break it down. So number 1 down here is the foundation of the plan. So at this point, we're really building those positive relationships. We're building a strong rapport with our student or our child and teaching those skills that are necessary to function successfully in challenging situations. So that might be using a scale or social stories, power cards, things like that. Level 2 is when stress is starting to be recognized. So this is when we really want to try and focus the person's attention away from the stress. Level 3, if the opportunity is there, you want to leave the anxiety producing event if possible. Level 4 would be a time to model those calming strategies. So strategies that this child has already been introduced to and is confident in engaging in, like taking a deep breath or going for a walk, squeezing a squish ball, all those things. You could model that to remind the child to engage in some of those coping strategies. Level 5 is peak anxiety. So this is not a time to talk or teach a new coping strategy. This is where the child is really feeling the most anxious and they are engaging in some of those high anxiety behaviors. But as all curves happen, we come back down. So level 4 again, this is when we should encourage the child to relax. We're not trying and use those coping strategies. We're not trying to make them make any big decisions or complete any big tasks, but we're just trying to help them kind of bring themselves down and center their bodies. Level 3, on the opposite ends, we're going to use our encouraging and supportive words. We're not really bringing up the incident, we're just building them up. Level 2, we can calmly redirect so that we can get them back on task. And then we can find ourselves back at level 1, where that is the time to reflect and talk about the strategies that, oh, remember we had our power card, or, oh, we've learned this or that or the other coping strategy, so that we can remind them to use it in the future. One of the cool parts about this scale is that there is also a parent curve or a staff curve. So it's important for us as adults or the trusted adults to control our own anxiety during any of these type of crisis situations. Because if we are showing heightened behavior and anxiety, that is going to reflect on our child or our student. So we need to do the best we can to be, calm and silent and just model those coping strategies rather than give in or contribute to some of those peak anxiety feelings. These are some visuals that we've created for JV students. So we can use these levels and give them some visuals and what strategies they can use. So at level 1, so one of these students really liked Tom and Jerry, and one was really into Frozen and Elsa. So level 1, I'm calm, I'm in control, green. So what can you do at this time? We're just self-monitoring. We're making sure we're following the group plan. We're doing everything we need to do, and we're able to engage in those activities. Level 2, I feel okay. I'm still in control, but I might start to feel a little less in control. So what can I do? I can ask for a break or ask for a squeeze or a squish toy. And these can always be personalized to a specific student or child. So strategies may look different from one child to the next. So these are just examples. Level 3, I am irritated. So we can think about it, big problem or little problem. A big problem affects a lot of people and there are not a lot of solutions, whereas a little problem affects only me and there are a lot of solutions and I can fix my problem in many different ways. Or I can ask someone to help me fix my little problem. Level 4, I'm feeling frustrated. So we can do some different coping strategies here. So one student liked to take deep breaths or count to 5. And one student liked to pretend she was in a happy place and sing some songs. Level 5, that's that peak anxiety. I'm out of control. So one student would ask a teacher for help and another would take deep breaths and leave the room, maybe go for a walk. So these are just some examples that we can kind of relate that scale levels 1 through 5 to something else. So some more tips and strategies. So the first one is reflective listening. So we're going to identify some warning signs that the student is demonstrating, and then therefore help them identify their own feelings and emotions. So, hey, I can see that your shoulders are tensed or your fists are clenched. It looks to me like you're feeling a little worried or you're feeling a little upset. So listen to them, but also reflect on to see, tell them what they're saying and what they're feeling. I hear that you're saying you're worried about your homework or your test. So reflect back to them so that they can hear and identify their own actions within themselves. Model feelings and emotions. It's typical, it's normal for us to feel anxious or nervous about things. We all do. So when you're feeling like you made a mistake and you're upset, you can say like, oh, bummer, I messed up and I forgot to write down our assignment on the board. What can I do to fix it? Oh, I'll just take a deep breath and I'm gonna do it later, and I hope everyone's okay with it, So model the feelings and emotions that you're having, whether it's, oh, I'm feeling really tired and it's hard to make dinner tonight. But letting them know, like, I'm gonna power through and put my head down and do it. Show them that you can be resilient too, and model that to show your child or your student. Schedule adjustments. So this can be done in a number of ways. So one way to do it is to figure out how long or like the length of time a student can successfully engage in an activity, and then have them stay in that activity for slightly less time. We don't want to reinforce this peak anxiety or those peak anxiety behaviors by ending an activity when they engage in those behaviors. So if we can end the activity before we reach peak anxiety, we can slowly build our way up to completing the whole assignment. Another thing to do is to schedule preferred activities either at the beginning of the day or throughout challenging activities to provide breaks. Another strategy would be to adapt the work. So we can chunk our work into smaller pieces. So in this picture, you can see the file folder it's just a normal file folder cut into 3 different sections so that the student or child can only see a certain part of the worksheet at a time. You can also chunk big group projects or big reading tasks. Okay, we're going to just read 10 pages and then we'll take a break. Then we can come back and answer the comprehension questions or whatever the assignment may be. So by making the task seem a little bit less overwhelming, by making it less visually overwhelming, you can help the student persevere and complete the task. Some more strategies are to acknowledge their feelings. So we never want to discount feelings of anxiety. So we can sympathize and recognize those feelings while staying positive about the ability to deal with them. You can do this, like, I know it's hard, but you've done it before, or you've done hard things before. Focus on the positive. What good can come out of it? If you persevere, like what are the positive outcomes? Emphasize the confidence, builds the child up. Discuss bravery. What does it mean to be brave? What does it mean to try new things? And again, focus on those positive outcomes. We don't want to harp on those negative things. Like when a child comes home from school, you want to talk about the positive things. Tell me about a friend you played with. Tell me about a worksheet you completed. Tell me about who you talked to at lunch. We don't want to ask what was scary today or what made you worried, or, so by focusing on the positive, we can build our child up and really diminish some of those, not diminish, but decrease some of those anxiety feelings. Set a scheduled time for check-ins with the student. So open communication between a student and a trusted adult is really important. So you can develop a game plan. When are we going to check in? So if you're a teacher, you can say, every morning at 8 o'clock, I'm going to come in and we're going to make a plan for the day. At home, you can develop those game plans on the drive to and from school for the school day or when, the afternoon activities. So check in, let them tell you how they're feeling, and then you can build them up and develop that game plan so we can take out some of the unknowns. Peaceful imagery, so we can draw, we can close our eyes and just simply imagine a serene setting. Teaching deep breathing. So this was really important. So we want to teach this during times of calm. So those level 1 and level 2 type of times. How do we take deep breaths? So we can raise our arms for inhales and lower our arms for exhales. We can hold our abdomen to feel our stomach going in and out. So how do we take those deep breaths? We always can say, like, smell the birthday cake and then blow out the candles. You could use a paper windmill so that the student can visualize how their deep breaths are powerful and can help in a situation. Muscle relaxation. So that is on our last session on June 1st. I think we have some great professionals who will teach us about muscle relaxation and how that can be helpful for decreasing some of those anxiety feelings as well. So that would be a great opportunity for you to tune in to learn more about muscle relaxation. Providing visual choices or reminders is very helpful. We use visuals here at JB all the time in all settings. So we can create student-specific strategies and menus that students can reference with their preferred coping strategies. So this is an example of a little power card, but it could also be done through social stories or picture boards. The visuals that we use at the beginning of the session are also great scales and visuals. So this is for our student who liked Elsa. So Elsa wants you to remember to use your coping strategies when you are feeling upset or anxious. So then we just simply list them. Take a deep breath, count to 10, walk away, go to your happy place, and then let it go. And then we would often sing Let It Go. So those power cards could be on a desk. We could put a binder clip on it and clip it to a backpack, put on your belt loop, wherever you may need it at home, on your refrigerator, a mirror, anything like that. So power cards are super simple. Some can be really lengthy for our big readers, and some can be very simple like this one, or even without any words and just using picture cues for taking deep breaths or whatever the coping strategy may be. It's important to provide opportunities for exercise, music, fun, especially at school. You know, school, there's a lot of hard things that happen at school, and it can be challenging, but it can be really fun too. So it's important to build in those opportunities for students to engage in some of those preferred activities throughout their days. So as we're wrapping up, I think some really important things to remember is that none of these strategies are going to eliminate anxiety. We are just learning how we can manage it and cope with it. So nothing I introduced today is going to eliminate anxiety forever, but what we can do and we can practice is to help our children and our students be more confident in their abilities to use their coping strategies and remember that they have wonderful coping strategies that they can use when they're feeling anxious. I think that's some of the hardest parts, is that we know our coping strategies and we can talk about them. You can repeat them back at those level 1s, but when we have a hard time using them when we're in level 3, 4, and 5. So the more practice we have is the better. So using those strategies when we need them. When you're working with your students or your children, expressing positive and realistic expectations. So everything should be framed positively when possible, but also realistic. You know, we want to make sure that our students and children can meet our expectations. So making sure it's well within their capabilities, but then also being able to know that they can carry those through. Ask open-ended, positively framed questions. So kind of how I said at the beginning or earlier, we're asking about the good parts of our day. We're not just asking about what was hard. And asking open-ended questions is really important to get your child talking, and then you can go off, you know, and think of other topics that they bring up as they go. And perhaps one of the easiest, but also most challenging, easier said than done, is to model healthy ways to handle anxiety. So every day, you know, we're all faced with a lot of stress and anxiety in today's world. So just showing your child or your student that we can do hard things. And yes, I'm feeling these emotions, but I have all these skills and strategies that I can use to get through it. So before we check questions, we have a couple more parts to our anxiety webinar series. So next week is understanding the relationship between trauma and anxiety in K through 8 children. We have two awesome intervention specialists, Miss Maggie Schmidt and Mrs. Danielle Manzeo, who will lead you in that one on May 18th. And then the following week, we have art therapy for anxiety, processing emotion through art for children. And that one will be done by our art therapists at Lyndhurst and Akron, Holly Queen and Diane Hughes. So that one will be really wonderful as well. So if you have questions at this time, you can use the Q&A box at the bottom of your webinar screen, and I will see if we can answer some of those. And then if not, you can always email the general JB email, and I will either respond or we'll make sure someone can respond to answer those questions. Or you can email me directly at kschaefer@jbschool.org, and we can be in touch that way. So I'm going to see if I can find some of these questions. They're not popping up, so I will tell you this is my first time doing a Zoom webinar, so I'm not sure I'm looking in the right place, but let's see. Hello, I can't find the questions. Okay. Oh, look your Q&A. Right. Thank you for your patience. Oh, okay, perfect. So one of them is that the notes were not emailed, but I will make sure that we get our notes emailed. So I will follow up and make sure that everyone can get access to the webinars. So yes, you will get the slides in the notes. Behavior analyst. So I am a board certified behavior analyst. It is an up and coming field. So my job here at JB is to collaborate with the teachers and help our students learn and participate in the school day and the school curriculum. So we really try and dive in and see the cause or the function behind the behaviors and see what interventions we can put in place to help them be successful. What do you do if a child won't try the calming tools? Any tips? That is very likely. So we just have to get creative and think of strategies that they do want to use. So some like to, and you can kind of base it off of the behaviors that they're engaging in. So whether it's ripping cardboard boxes, something that's hard, if they're feeling like they're, you know, have a lot of strength and they're pent up anger. So whether it's like ripping something, drawing, scribbling. So sometimes the behaviors that they're engaging in that may be unexpected in a school setting, we can provide them with other options. So for example, if they're worried about something, they're scribbling all over a worksheet, maybe they can have a folder of scrap paper that they can scribble on, or things like that. So I think it's really important to find strategies that are important or that are motivating for the child. So we don't, you know, sometimes taking deep breaths just isn't going to cut it. So we need to get a little bit more creative with our coping strategies. So it just kind of depends on each student. So one says, my son often exhibits anxiety in virtual school when he feels the teacher is moving too quickly and he can't keep up. So what could be some good ways to help him when he's feeling rushed? So the virtual environment is definitely a challenge for everybody. So I think having like that trusted adult, and maybe if he and his teacher could meet separately at a certain time and come up with a signal to each other, whether it's, you know, he raises his hand or he has his hands on his head, some way that he can kind of let her know, like, I need a little bit extra support. So I think having that conversation with the teacher and letting her know, but then also giving your child the power to kind of self-advocate for himself, which is hard, especially if he's a young student, a first grader. You know, it's a big skill to take on. In a normal, typical classroom where, you know, we're in person, we could put different visuals on the desk, maybe with like a picture of a clock, or it could also be just like a picture of Sonic or something, some cue that he could maybe point to let the teacher know. So I think it would be really important to teach those self-advocacy skills to him, but also to let the teacher know that we're going to need some extra support and slow down a little bit. Okay, I think those are all the questions I'm seeing, but if you have any other questions, please feel free to email us and we will make sure we get an email, get an answer to you. So thank you so much for joining me this afternoon. Here are some emails that you can and ways to contact us. And then at the end, and you will get these slides, but I have some resources for families, some different websites or apps and books that you can look into. And then at the bottom are just like my resources that I use when preparing this presentation. Thank you all so much, and I hope you have a great afternoon.